Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases.
Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. As always, whenever you're in chat, be mindful of families, mods, and each other. Mrs. Steve is still in Florida taking care of the grandchildren, and double alt, triple alt Steve. And so I had to travel back up to Georgia this week and get everything in order up here. But tonight we're going to be looking at Richard Allen and talking about secrets. And a lot of people have a lot of secrets. Some of those secrets are far more sinister, and the details of some of these secrets and what they hold and why certain people, we all look at ourselves, and I'm sure there's going to be, as this presentation goes forth, that people will be looking across the room and at their loved ones and thinking, what secrets do you have that I don't know about? And because throughout our lives, we have certain things that have occurred in our lives, and where we scrape by the hair of our teeth. But not all of us are psychopaths, and the majority of us are not. But there is a percentage of the population out there that are. And typically when I look at the evil and the crimes that we look at, I pretty well lump all these type of individuals together as having certain psychopathic tendencies and things that they do, and the secrets and the lives that they live. For the fact that if you saw a raging maniac running around the streets, you call law enforcement, and he wouldn't be out on the street long. But some of these individuals that have agendas and have the abilities to live a secret life and have these secrets are able to operate in our midst without us realizing, and as Doug Carter said, hiding in plain sight. So, but anyway, before we get into that, let's start. And that if you have any information on this case, absolutely make sure that law enforcement has it. Libby and Abby absolutely deserve justice. We have an individual, Richard Allen, who's currently being held and under probable cause for their homicides. And while he's considered innocent until proven guilty, we will be looking at this case and mindful of those facts. But there are certain things, and people have differing opinions. We have two sides to the story. We have some that just open-minded right down the middle, but not as many as the ones that are absolutely innocent to the ones that say that, yes, there is absolutely enough evidence to convince them that he is an individual responsible for this. And you'll see that in law enforcement, that that they'll mention and they'll say things like the guy on the bridge is the one that's responsible. And the guy on the bridge is, if you reverse engineer it now that with the charges that that Richard Allen is facing for the double homicides, that, okay, if he's the guy on the bridge is responsible, then of course we reverse engineer and they're identifying bridge guy as Richard Allen. But as we go forward on the case and everything, while you're in chat, there's going to be other individuals that have names are out there. We don't use names in chat, don't use initials, just persons of interest, POIs, suspects, and otherwise. Before we get too far into the case, I want to welcome, it appears that Chris with Mob Crew has sent his crew over. Thank all of y'all for coming over. Chris and I have worked together for quite a while on several cases, and I look forward to working with him in the future, along with some other channels. There's that we work with, but we will Unearth Secrets, and I and Chris, we all went to work on the Amber Crum case last summer, and that case had some developments in it over the last few months, which we're very excited about. But we got other things that's coming up in the future, so stay tuned with us on those. But anyway, before we get too far into chat, I see Barbara Hall is here. If y'all don't know who Barbara Hall is, she is the mother of Timmy Dees. If you'll go into Google and look at Timmy Dees, spelling last name Dees, you'll see the fight that she has fought over the last couple of years of him being missing, and the details about what occurred and what she's been fighting for justice for quite a while. So I want to welcome her in the house, and if y'all would look at that, share it with your friends, and absolutely for the fact that any information that can be provided needs to be provided so that they can have justice in that case also. But let me get over here and chat and see if there's any questions before we get started into the presentation. CJK, Sarah, Marion, Olivia too. If I miss anybody, Laura, good to see you. And good point here from Laura that yes, Libby is absolutely the hero to have the presence of mind and the courage in realizing that there's something wrong with this individual. And before the fact that you wouldn't just randomly be taking a video of someone as they approach, and on that video, if it's the rumors are true about, hey, he has a gun, there was something that keyed her spider senses and made her realize that there was issues. Cunningham, good to see you. Let's see, Curtis West, Lisa, Dandelinas, Baby Kisses, Bitsy Scott, Colleen, Sensei, Curtis, Mead, Copper Horse, good to see you. Hello, Todd. There's Lisa, Zelda, just trying to check through all this. If I missed anybody's name, I apologize. Lisa, Stacy, Patty. Uh-oh. Mrs. Steve says that my intro was playing again. I apologize for that. If it got clicked, my skill sets. Mrs. Steve normally does this, so y'all have to bear with me. All right. Okay. All right, let's get into the presentation now. Like I said, who can deny that if this is an individual that's responsible for a double homicide and is not a psychopath or someone that has extreme evil within them, for the fact that while certain homicides can spring up from anger, revenge, and things in a short and occur, but when you have two homicides, especially of children, that there's no remorse. You committed one homicide and then you went and committed another homicide. And so when you're dealing with this type of individual, extremely evil, and it's such a tragedy of what occurred there that day. And Mrs. Steve's texting me if she's in Florida monitoring. But these type of individuals, they all have secrets. That a psychopath walking the streets that is out doing evil in broad daylight, such as this individual, he has to be very selective of the areas and of his victims, for the fact that they can't be in a public area that is seen and where he would be captured, for even the fact that these individuals have certain drives that make them do certain things to fulfill their fantasies and feed whatever that animal within them is, that they would go to extremes and take extreme risks to fulfill those. And this individual identified as bridge guy did that. Ted Bundy, he would do the same thing. You know, he went and abducted two victims off a busy beach in the middle of the day. Who would have ever thought that that is even possible? And so these individuals of this type are extremely dangerous, as we can see with this case. And these psychopaths have absolutely no empathy for others. Means nothing to them. It's all about them, the narcissistic part of their soul. It's all about them. And when they speak to you, you know, you may think they care, or they may give out certain signals and ruses and trying to create a cover story. But down deep, they have no use for you. And certain individuals, you'll realize it. And a lot of us have dealt with these people. As we see with this case here. But, and they'll often have these criminal tendencies. And this individual here, bridge guy, absolutely hits all of those. But some of the research I was doing in law enforcement, when we conduct interviews, we, of course, before we go into an interview room and start questioning people, we understand a lot about their life. We know their background, their criminal history, things that everyone would be able to witness. They're in total view of the world. That information is easily gathered by talking to friends, neighbors, preachers, family members, or just doing a search of their criminal history. We understand everything publicly known about these individuals. But that's not what we want. We want to know those secrets, because individuals, as I was speaking to a good friend of mine today, I realized something I never knew about that person. They gave me some information, and which was a great example of things that if they hadn't spoken to me, that if they had went out and committed a crime, and with the knowledge that they had of these other cultures and the abilities to speak these other languages, I would have, and also to write these languages, I would have never known that fact about that individual. And if they wanted to go into a crime scene and commit certain crimes and put certain texts or certain words and use it correctly, you know, you could stage an event to make it look like something. And if you don't have a true deep understanding of it, you might make some mistakes. And is that what occurred here with Delphi? That while someone may have some deep, dark secrets, of course, when we're going to be looking at why these people keep these deep, dark secrets, and this individual here, this professor, Columbia University in the city of New York, his name is Slevin, I believe. I forgot, it didn't pull up on the slide what his name is, but if you look him up, I think it's Slevin, and that people keep their own secrets to escape being punished for their misdeeds. And he has numerous books out there about secrets. All the titles, or most of the titles of his writing and research is about secrets and why people keep them and what it means. But this is from one of it, and one of the articles that was published in Psychology Today. But when you read it, that there are 36 common secrets identified by researchers, and the average person keeps about 12 of them. So if you look at yourself, and I guess if you wrote them down or thought about them, you'd have about 12 of these secrets that no one else knows. And that some are harmful because they're shameful, or others can be empowering. And the insight into the reason for keeping a secret can help you avoid ruminating about it. But the one type of secret we're looking at tonight in this type of case is the immorality and that involve behavior that people, including the secret holder, that would consider to be immoral. And these types are examples of high on the immoral dimension, including harm to another person, theft, or other illegal acts, which homicide is harming another person, and also committing illegal acts. And we get to this individual. What do we know about him publicly? We knew where he worked. We knew his past history. He worked at a local pharmacy. Past history, he worked at a big box store, and he liked to drink, play pool, liked to walk trails. There was a lot of things about this individual that we all knew in the public eye. But and that's the things that we want to look at. We have pictures and images of him on walking trails, not only here at that he admitted to being on the trails at Delphi that day, but on his Facebook that was kept by his wife. There was postings of pictures of him walking other trails, enjoying outdoors. And she may or may not, if he is the individual responsible for this, may not have realized that not only was he enjoying the outdoors, but was he possibly watching and looking for other potential victims, for the fact that these individuals go into these accessible places of where they can identify and look for ambush points, areas that they could isolate an individual, and they may return to those at some time and some point in the future, because otherwise it's extremely high risk. And we know that about the Monon High Bridge, that from some of the information that he was there, had been there previously, had walked those trails. And for whatever reason, if he is the one responsible, this day there was something that triggered him, that caused him to go to a greater, take enormous risk of not only trying to abduct one victim, but two. And we also know that evidently he likes to watch fish, because he says that he was on this platform looking down into the water, looking at fish. Now but what does the term fish mean? Is it actual fish? Or, there's certain references that individuals would refer to other people as fish. It's used widely. It's known about. There's publications out there, whereas they talk about it. And even in the poker world, you got fish. And so there's a lot of people out there that discuss it. We also know that he has firearms. He has knives. He likes to collect them. He has a fair collection of phones, which there's a lot of us that have old phones. I think I counted up. I think I have like 14 phones. 3 of them personally that are active. Now, Mrs. Steve, she has a couple, 3 herself. And so we have a large number of phones. And just by having a large number of phones doesn't mean that you're having secrets. But we can see that some of these secrets can be maintained and regulated by the ownership of phones. We saw that in the Long Island serial offender, that that's what he would do. He'd go get those burner phones. And we know that in the search warrant at Richard Allen's property, that some phones were found, secured. And is that what alerted law enforcement? Because we know back in the day, during Robert Ives' interview, he mentioned that they had gathered all the data from the cell tower about phones that were new to the area that day, phones that were usually in the area, phones that had only clicked on one time, and phones that have never returned. And so they have a lot of data about that. So they would be researching it. And but this is where we get into the dark part of this, that we have an individual that says that he was standing on this bridge. This individual says that he was on this first platform. Now, regardless if you believe that the witness saw him at that critical time frame, that, this was a different individual. We have the Richard Allen himself saying, I was on this platform looking for fish. The same individual, once he's incarcerated and being held, made a confession, and people will continue to make excuses of that. Well, his confessions was forced out of him, but the confessions are on a different level for the fact that they're not to law enforcement. although there may be some people within the prison system, guards, doctors, nurses, whoever works in the system that he may have also spoke to, but to his wife and mother. And law enforcement has indicated that they have those phone calls. So we have an individual that, while people say there's no evidence that he's involved in this, we have him that he's within a few hundred feet of the actual crime scene. And at some point in his life, he says, I'm the guy. I'm the one responsible for it. And of course, that would be weighed out and sorted out in the courts as we move forward. And not only does he say that he's responsible for it, but he says that the day that he was there, he was wearing clothing very similar to this individual. And so he's there within a very close time frame. He says he's on that bridge. Now, he does deny ever seeing the witness that says he was on the bridge, and he denies seeing Libby and Abby. But he does say that he has this type of clothing. And then we have to go back that the same individual that stood on this first platform, that some shape, form, or fashion, unspent round from a gun that law enforcement seized and was able to send to a lab to be analyzed by an expert, that there's a bullet that was found at the crime scene between the two victims. And so we have to, think back and say, well, this firearm, when did law enforcement first realize that there was a firearm being used? There's a lot of information out there that it was mentioned and it was edited out during the editing by law enforcement of the video, that famous 48 slide video of the loop that we see of when the abduction occurred. And this is a huge thing. What does Richard Allen, if he is the holder of these secrets, what does he know about what went on as this individual approached? Because Richard Allen, if this isn't him, he never says that he saw this individual. He never described another individual that matched his description. And so the secrets of what he knows about those individuals are meeting Libby and Abby. And how could we get those secrets out of him? Showing him and talking to him and using the confession. Will he ever release those? And if he is the one that's is identified as bridge guy, which law enforcement believes, like I said, you reverse engineer it back. They said he's the one responsible. And in the past, they said the individual that was walking on the bridge is the sole person involved. Then, of course, it's one and the same Richard Allen. But what secrets would have occurred from the time the abduction occurred? Because there's a lot of time there. You only have probably a little bit less than an hour from the time of the some of those images being made, the video being made, and we don't know the exact moment. There's some references made by Doug Carter that everything was over by 3:30. And then we have other witnesses that came in much later that said that, I saw someone that was muddy walking down the road, muddy and bloody or muddy. So there's no lack of of argument by people that have read the probable cause affidavits and have picked out certain points that this is what one person said, this is what the defense says, and it caused great controversy. And the defense is doing their role. But here at the crime scene, what does Richard Allen know about that crime scene? And some of his related information and denials that we can look at, he'd never been to the properties. Is that true or not? Will he backtrack on that? Will the attorneys be able to get those confessions out of the so they'll never be presented to a jury? Will they be able to suppress that bullet and what went on here at this crime scene? Because if he is the one responsible for it, he knows exactly what went on at that crime scene. And there's certain things that happened at this crime scene that were pre-planned. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That that if you took and you commit, you bring weapons, and if Richard Allen doesn't have the normal, um, that in his normal daily carry, doesn't carry a firearm every day, and doesn't carry knives every day, and he did have them on his person that day, then that's a change in something. Why would he do something that he normally doesn't do? But now he may be able to bring in witnesses and family members, say, and co-workers that say, yes, he carried a firearm and knives every day that he came to work. We'll find out those details. But if he didn't, and that bullet was there from his firearm, that's huge. And he'll have to explain those circumstances. But the planning and certain, placement of the sticks and what some of the law enforcement, the FBI, related as being runes from a odinist, someone knowing of that culture and of that religion, that they would have had to have certain knowledge. Well, people have secret things in their life. A lot of us and have, like I said, all different types of secrets. Could someone have a dark secret that is so dark that they fantasize about certain acts, and that we're going to have a sacrifice, and their wife, their family may not know about it? We can look back at past serial offenders and we can see it with BTK. He was married. John Wayne Gacy, same thing, that they have these deep, dark fantasies, able to carry out the crimes and no one the wiser. Not saying that there may be glimpses by close family members, children, into this dark tunnel of exposure, like when BTK said, certain things, that when he went into that other dimension to commit these crimes. But we have to look at that if it could be true with BTK and John Wayne Gacy having secrets that no one in his family knew of, and he's able to suppress them and not share them with his family, that the attorneys can say, well, there's no evidence that he has any knowledge, any involvement, or anything to do with this. And that's just a total, and that we can prove he has none of this. That we'll have to find out in the courts. But we all have secrets, other than I, and, I'm an open source of information. But anyway, let's finish up here. Let's see, am I all the way through? Yes, I'm all the way through on that. So if you have any questions, throw them in chat and we will discuss them and get going. Hey, there's the mob crew. He's here. I don't know if he's still with us or not, but hello, Chris. All right. Gail said that she was transported here right away. Excellent. All right. So if you got any questions, throw them up there. And before we get started, let's see what the starred ones are. All right. Cynthia Gaines gifted 5 True Crime Web memberships. Thank you. There's a lot. We have a new member that is Hope, 46SF. Gil Hurd did a $3 super sticker. Thank you. Laura just became a YouTube member. Appreciate it. And for all the YouTube members, and as we have shows on Sunday where all the members are there. And so if you have any questions and you just want to spend some time for me every Sunday afternoon, I try to get, and we spend a little bit of time together and I answer all your questions. And also on Wednesday for the detectives and the commanders, I have a show for them also. And hello, Farmer, 99-cent super sticker. Good to see you. Been getting some emails from a farmer today. Like talking to him. Extremely intelligent individual. All right, let me get my this going. Yes, I see we got quite a few from the mob crew. Thank y'all for being here. All right, Heather. Miss Wu, not all of us are psychopaths. So I think you may have some secrets there. Is that what you're trying to say? Like I said, um, as I was reading, and like I said, you can go into all these topics, and there's a lot of reasons people have secrets. But in a 1 hour show, hour and 15-minute show, it's extremely difficult to go over all of them. So I just have to pick why certain individuals. And during the interview process of with law enforcement, that's the thing that we want. We want those unknown secrets that can lead us to understanding why people commit certain crimes. And with these confessions that his wife stopped it, hung up the phone. Obviously, this is something that she wasn't prepared to hear or didn't want to hear and stopped it. Had she ever suspected it, we'll never know. We don't know the secrets of anyone. And we may have glimpses and we can speculate, but we have to be very careful in that speculation for the fact that the individual that is responsible for this, if he's a lone wolf, is that one individual. It has nothing to do with the rest of the family. Even if they have suspicions and they kept those suspicions to themselves, that's between them and whatever law enforcement wants to do. It's not for us in public to judge them. Zelda, Redfoot. Right. Joe Moser. Yes, Lee. I will tell Mrs. Steve she's seeing that now. As I also miss her. We were parted. We was just yesterday was Valentine's, and we didn't get to see each other. But she said she would be my Valentine. All right, which was a big relief. Heather, whatever. That's a good name. Lisa Laura Smith, Karen, Senior B. Joshua Posh. There's Leanne, Equestrian 100. Dandy Linus. Right. Just like I said, trying to check to see if we have any questions. He says he's going to be calling me soon. Excellent. Curtis West. Cynthia Gaines. You teleported here. Y'all are funny. Baby kisses. Mrs. Steve, appreciate that. All right. Gilhert, True Crime Web. I hear different info about the bullet. When was it found and how? I hear it was found when girls were found. Then I hear it was found days later. Confusing. Yes. The tell-all that will sort this out will be at some point during the pre-trial or during a certain stage in the trial. The evidence sheet will be presented that has this because it will tell you from the time that law enforcement obtained that that unspent round, where they obtained it from, who they obtained it from. Doesn't matter if it's an investigator. It doesn't matter if it's a third person that's outside law enforcement. Whoever recovered it, they'll be the first one that had custody of that fire, of that unspent round. And it would be, there will be a date, a time, the individual that the bullet was, or the unspent round was turned over to. And then when it's bagged and tagged, it will go all the way to the crime lab, and it will have everyone's name that was in possession of that bagged bullet. And this isn't going to be a bullet that they carried around in their hand. It's going to be a bullet that when it was recovered, regardless by who and however it was presented to the law enforcement, or if it was recovered by CSI on day one, they would have used certain procedures to recover it to ensure that there's no cross-contamination or destruction of possibility of fingerprint on the unspent round. And I mean, that's just normal procedures if CSI has it. But now if it was recovered by a third party outside law enforcement, those early hours of being handling, if that did occur and it was taken to law enforcement, that might not be the case, that they preserved it to the point that they didn't destroy some type of identifying fingerprints on the unspent round. But once that round reached law enforcement, that's when the evidence sheet will detail every movement and transportation and test that was completed on that unspent round, which I'll be completing. I have some of these unspent rounds that I recovered on my bullet test that I'm currently doing. I'm processing those bullets now to see that they've been left out into the elements. Some of them been half buried by stepping on into the earth, and I'll be processing them, and Saturday's show will be on that. But it won't be confusing once we see that evidence sheet, Gail. Hello, Drunk Turkey Show. He's here. Good to see him. I was on his show as a guest last night. Had a wonderful time. It was an honor to be on his show. The man knows his stuff. Frederica, good to see you. Bossy, Dwayne's Prospecting Adventures. How you doing? Michael Kimmy, Deborah Chase, Chris sent you. I'm glad he did. Molly's here. Karen Boardman, Stacy said, just trying not to miss too many. If I miss something or question or something, I apologize. I'm so sorry about you losing your father. Let's see here. Let's see, Steve, do you believe we'd be in the same stage of the case if the BG video was never taken or recovered? Absolutely. We know that the video did not lead to a early apprehension of the individual. And so after that first week, it turned into a month, turned into a year, that then we know that the video isn't going to be the one thing that breaks this case, for the fact that anyone within that community, and having traveled there when Mrs. Steve and I, when we arrived there in Delphi and we went trying to locate, we had people that was willing to show us the area when we first got there, but we wanted to experience, just as Robert Ives said, that if you didn't know it existed, you wouldn't be able to find it. Well, we knew it existed, but everything and every way that we could Google it, it took us to different parts of town. We finally found it, but it was on about the third or fourth attempt, because if you type in the trail, it's going to take you to different sections of the trail, and it'll even take you to the Weber driveway, and which we didn't realize at the point. We drove up to the gate, and I thought, well, this isn't it. And I didn't realize until later where that location was. But eventually got over to the cemetery and was able to track everything down. But it's not easy to find, even when you're using Google Earth or any of your maps. It's just not something that you would find. But the video, like I said, after that first year, it also showed that if anyone in the community recognized him, they may have called in that tip and said, oh, that looks like so-and-so. And we know it was referenced in the search warrants as far as that people identified him publicly as being Ron Logan, and because they included it in their probable cause affidavit for the Logan properties. But that was the only person that we heard that they discussed. So we know that there were tips called in. We know there was an enormous amount of tips called in, and it would have been because of this video. But for whatever reason, all the information, and we know that Richard Allen came to law enforcement, spoke to him early on, and that was it. for 5 years, no further attention was given to him, and until much later. This will do nicely. Good to see you. Yes, that has been mentioned before that she loved true crime shows, and that she was aspiring to be in some type of law enforcement officer or public service. And like I said, she would have been a great individual to be in this line of work for the fact that I've worked with some extremely professional females, and I rely upon the females' spider senses, intuition, far better than men, because with Mrs. Steve, she's never taken me down the wrong path that, hey, that guy over there, there's something wrong with him. Now she'll go on the eyes. She'll look at them eyes and say it's all in the eyes. But even with those female officers I worked with, they never led me astray. That they anticipated a lot of things that probably saved me a few more or lessened the amount of injuries that I experienced in my career. Yes, Karen, we got Mrs. Steve. We got after we get everything moved into the same uh, properties, because like I said, we're in multiple states right now moving, so it'll take us a little while. Little one, good to see you. Let's see here. Get caught up. I'm not that far behind, about 30 minutes. J is for Justice podcast. This is another great channel. Check her out. Absolutely. Um, I go over there and get in their chat, jump in there every now and then. I'm so busy right now, it's so hard. Pickle Toes Grandma. That's a new name. Wonderful name. Yes, I'm a retired CSI guy and investigator, and I still work with some of the schools and things going in. Gil Hurd, $3 super sticker. I don't know if I got that while ago. I'm standing in front of my blue light. Mrs. Steve will get on to me. Let's see. Hopefully, like I said, I'm trying to get caught back up chat. Yes, I have 3 phones in 2 years. If you saw one of the phones, you would think it doesn't work. Junior Johnson says it's hard to believe you could keep this sickness from his wife, family, and friends. You would think someone would have seen something odd about him. And like I said, glimpses into certain facts about someone's life. And if it's someone that you love, I mean, you write them off. You make excuses. And there are certain conditions out there of where individuals can be the controlling factor in a relationship, and whatever they tell you, you'll absolutely believe. That is, there's a name for it in the profession. I just can't think of it right now of what it is where that type of relationship is, and it happens a lot in abusive relationships. I think he was messed up on something. I don't see him having the enough to do what he did without some sort of chemical courage. And that is true. A lot of there is certain types of chemicals or alcohol or drugs that can trigger, and they'll use them. There's a lot of these individuals that have committed this type of crime that have that addiction. And is that the same for him? We will find out. Yes, I went there. I looked down into the water. Sometimes the water's, stained and you can't see, but sometimes it's absolutely clear and it's very shallow. Um, I went there one spring and it was probably at full running pool. And then, but in the fall of the year, most times I've been there, it's been extremely shallow. Kim Mulligan, good to see you. Amy Hicks, thank you. Uh, Lynn, if he was looking at a stock ticker, they can find out more info on his phone. And this would be something that law enforcement will look at. Not so much as if they'll be able to track if he's looking at a stock ticker, but he says that he was using the phone there. And law enforcement will bring up this that while he may say this, that wasn't what was happening. There's no, if this is one of those admissions that has no standing or no supporting evidence, that he says that, oh, I was on the trail and this is what I was doing. If there's not something to support that and back that up, why is that? Why would you be on the stock ticker and rather than just putting your phone back in your pocket for the fact that the phone would have to be deactivated or they would have more than likely picked up that signal at some point. Even when I was there doing these tests on pings, Mrs. Steve and I and Purdue RN, we were in the area and we was conducting these tests. Not all the pings were wrong. Not all of them were right. They probably ran 50-50. But if his phone was on the whole time, that phone would have pinged at that crime scene. And so even if he's looking at his stock ticker, it should show that, oh, this is a time that he was on the trail looking at his stock ticker because this is his phone, this is his number, or this is a number to one of his phones that he says, oh, this is a phone I was using, or that's the number I was using. There'll be a paper trail, a digital trail showing that. And if that's not the case, and law enforcement, if they had a trail showing that, this is where he was at, this is his trail of his digital trail of his pings, and while he was on the trail that day, these are exact times, and he left. This is where he was at. That evidently is not the case. If we had that information, we have two attorneys we know for a fact that would be screaming it, that no, he just says he was over there. But if they had evidence of a digital pinging of him being elsewhere, they'd be screaming it. He'd be out on the street and bonded out. We don't have that piece of evidence. Sharon Everett, you're fine. You're not late. I've always been wondering if the dark web is also involved. It doesn't take a genius to get on there like KK and Richard Allen. Very possible. And that can be something that would be involved, especially when you have individuals that have deep secrets and that they go on these sites and they stay off of the main web. They get on the dark web, and the dark web is there for a purpose. And not all the stuff on the dark web is evil. It's a very small percentage of it actually is used for other purposes. But could he have been on it? We'll find out if he was using it. Getting called up. I'm only 20 minutes behind now, guys. Amy Hicks. It's called self-preservation, self-survival. That, if Ted Bundy had went and walked up to his girlfriend and says, hey, I care for you a lot, but this is what I do in my part-time. Of course, it would have been over. And but they do it. They're narcissistic. They feed that fantasy. They want to. The only thing they fear is whatever impacts their world and takes their freedom away from being that selfish individual that the world is all about them. Everything else means nothing to them. And so keeping a secret to them is not like a normal person keeping a secret. And that's one of the biggest things and hardest things to try to tell ourselves, that we can't think like these individuals. It's impossible. Even with all the training that you get, you can never put yourself in the position of way that they analyze and the predators that they are. It's just not part of our, there's some brilliant behavioral scientists out there and people in the profession, the psychologists, psychiatrists, that they have a deep understanding far greater than us as individuals, but there's still mysteries to them. Justin Bishop, good to see you. Higgs. Yes. I don't know if anyone else has done that, but yes, and that's what I'm saying. Some of the steps taken, one of those limbs, looking at it, while the defense says it was cut with a power saw, and I took I did some tests, and it could be cut by any numbers of different saws, manual or power. I don't know how they knew it would be power, but it does have the appearance that at least one of those sticks was cut. And that takes time. And you don't do things like that except for a reason. And what is that reason? Why? And covering them up with leaves, if you were trying to send a message to the world, you wouldn't cover them up. But now, if you're just doing a message to yourself, or you're doing certain acts that only have meaning to you and full understanding to you, you don't care if the rest of the world sees it or not. It's only when you want to have a certain message, shock value to the rest of the community and to the world, that you would leave them exposed in certain manners. And is it self-survival that, and the keeping it whereas the crime scene can't be detected, so that you can separate yourself from that scene. There's a lot of reasons to hide, and there's a lot of reasons that individuals leave them fully exposed. Al on the prowl, good to see you. Also, there's really no ballistics. That's as far as the being a fired spent round with the pressures created by a bullet being fired. That's true, but there are still certain things from the ejectors and different parts of the firearm that can create individualized characteristics that can be identified if you listen to one side of the story, and then you have to go to the other side, and we'll have experts from both sides arguing that point. And this is a good point, Justin, that law enforcement, while Richard Allen says he parked at that old farm building, there's an argument, is it the CPS or is it a different building? And so we'll just have to see. Of course, let's see, Olivia. And this is interesting about that. There's a unspent round or a bullet in a wooden box on his dresser. That is something of why you would do that. In my life, in my career, I have bullets strode just about everywhere. But I don't have any bullets put in memorial boxes or any type of sentimental boxes that mean anything to me. Mrs. Steve will tell you that whatever chest of drawers you go into or ashtray that you open or drawer alongside the recliner or the pockets on the recliner, she's going to find a bullet somewhere. And or in the washing machine, even in the dryer, she finds bullets constantly. And so, but I don't have any kept in any type of memorial situation. And was the shell casing buried in the ground? And that's some of the testing I'm doing currently. I place some bullets out in a crime scene area that I do a lot of my testing in. I just threw the bullets onto a leafy debris area of the woodline, and I stepped on them, tried to hide them, and it wasn't that easy to hide a bullet that's left from the top. Then I scraped out an area and laid certain bullets so that I could step on them and put them partially in to the ground. And if there was muddy areas in that area during that time from the snow and the earth being soft, could those bullets have been even further embedded into the ground? Absolutely. Especially if it was some soggy area. Plus, you could have mud transfer from the creek. If you crossed it, climbed the bank, had mud on your shoes, stepped onto it, and there was a transfer of the upper layer of mud in contact with another area that would bond with that previous mud, that would create a buried effect. There's a lot of different ways of a casing becoming buried or explained as being buried. Marcus, hello, how you doing? Oh yeah, Mr. Steve Seeger is bested by Mrs. Steve like melting bag on stove. You burn up one bag of groceries and you never live it down. That could happen to anybody. EP, what psychopathic tendencies have you heard of or think RA might possess? You know, I know very little about his private life. There's rumors and things out there. There's people that are talking about that work with him, and these are all rumors. They're not certain things that are included in the probable cause affidavit. Although, if you look at the certain things of the FBI, of what they said about who they thought the offender was within their probable cause affidavit, about someone that would want to memorialize or take photographs of the crime scene. While homicides of 2 children is bad enough, an individual that would take pictures is even more psychotic. But other than we just have hints of people that said that, and that's not been testified, that's not been proven. The only thing that we know for a fact that is kind of, or is, carries that profile of evil, is that when he's telling his wife, I'm the one responsible for this. And I've kept that. And at that point, if it is a true statement, that his ability to maintain that secret, because he's the one that's confessed. His own attorney says that those can be written off for a lot of reasons, but Richard Allen is the one that confessed. And for whatever reason, he's the one that confessed. Was it out of guilt? Was it out of wanting to share? Was it pressure? Don't know. But whatever the reason was, it's going to have to be explained. But he's the one. So if anything that we could say is of a pathological, psychological, sociopath, a psychopath type of individual, it's going to be that confession. Marion Tate, Gene Wagner. All crew, rise above, traveler here. Good to see you. Nice question. Is it unusual to go back to a crime scene once it's seen, done, and released and over with? You know, there's a lot of or there's times, and law enforcement has a strategy that they will, in certain cases, if they have indications that the offender is from a certain area and may revisit the crime scene. And, we're always in law enforcement told to scan the crowd at arsons and house fires. And it's the same for different types of crimes, especially homicides, that certain individuals will interject themselves into the crime. Is that either by wanting to become part of the investigation, assist in a search, share information, become a witness, find things? There's a lot of different ways these people interject themselves into these investigations. Mr. Steve, when LE collects DNA from innocent people in order to clear them, do they destroy it or upload it? It wouldn't be into CODIS. There's certain guidelines about how it is introduced into CODIS. And I find this extremely interesting. Is it for the fact that the neighbors and friends fear that they don't want to be part of it? And the defense would go out there and be able to canvass his friends, co-workers, and they'll have a stronger understanding and of who would be able to be a character witness or an alibi, and that'll be brought up at the proper time. But it is extremely interesting that we haven't had a lot of people step up and say, that's impossible. I knew him. He was not that type of person. It doesn't mean he's guilty. We don't know. I wish Gail says, could I clarify here two things about the bullet? When it was found, was it on top of the ground? We don't know those facts. While certain people said that it was CSI, some people says that it's was an individual. And if we look at from what the defense released about that there's no photographs, it does lead one to believe that CSI didn't find the bullet. And I base this upon this, that if CSI found that bullet, there would be photographs and the defense wouldn't be making that statement that there's no photographs of it. I believe that's what was in the Franks. But, and so if it's stated that there's no photographs of it, if the CSI didn't follow protocol on collecting the bullet, they're going to have a hard day in court. And even if we don't have images of the crime scene on the second time it was secured, and they went back and recovered and took photographs, they would go back for the fact that if you looked at these images, as I recovered these bullets from my test up at the crime scene, that there's an imprint, an impression of that shell casing in the ground. So that when you lift that bullet out, you have one that you can take that bullet, put right back in there, and it's going to fit like a hand in a glove. And so, and that's the thing that they would have went back and photographed, I hope, but we'll find out. All right, let's see what else is happening. Thank you, Mary Flynn. I enjoyed my time with the turkey show last night. And this is a good point. That what difference does it make if it was found days later? The only thing is that we have to make sure that whoever the individual is, that their story does match up, and it is a bullet from the crime scene. Sensei says, true crime, if Richard Allen has psychopathic tendencies, then I think he could hide in plain sight. Yes, he wouldn't display any emotions. And as we've seen in some of the images, he interacted with family members, went to locations that had the images behind him. You're exactly right. True Crime Web, another question. Does anyone know for sure if hair was found that was not animal? I have no idea. It was included in the Keegan Klein, I think on that search warrant, there was mentioning of that, and also in the FBI where they took hair sample from animals, I believe. Yes, Richard Allen did put himself in the area that day, and I will attempt to pronounce your name, but I would butcher it. What's up, Mr. Steve? That's J is for justice. Absolutely. I got to get back over there and participate in their chat some more too. I'm so busy right now, guys. I apologize. Here's Beth, says that she's a long-time lurker, first-time chatting. Glad you're here and always enjoy and engage us in chat. We appreciate it. When I write down what we know so far against Richard Allen, without even knowing what evidence the prosecution has, I say definitely RA on the bridge. Fair enough. And we need both sides. We have to have that. The truth is somewhere in there between both sides of the story. Why hasn't the judge recused herself? She's clearly biased against the defense. And if that's the case and they have evidence of that, then it will come out. And I have no idea, Todd, about sock and undergarment were missing from the crime scene. Do Odinists typically keep trophies from their religious cult rituals? Like I said, don't know. I never even heard of. I may have heard of them and seen them in movies and things or references to them, but I didn't even know that they exist. I thought it was something from the old world. Pickle Toes grandma, I don't know if there was any essay or not. And there's a lot of different ways that assaults can occur. Doesn't, and it always doesn't have to be from the physical aspects of it either. Fantasies can play a large part in some of these deaths and homicides. Hello, Miranda Lee. Glad you stopped by. Yeah, you would think that someone from the area would recognize him, and I think he was tipped in. I'm almost positive someone tipped him in way back wherever, and he knew that someone would make a reference. Hey, you look like so and so, but that guy's a lot taller than you are, or whatever excuses he could have made if it is indeed him. But you would think that the voice, and I have no idea how close it is, but we don't have anyone that confirm either way right now that I know of. Mr. Steve, do you know if one of the girls' cell phone was found at the scene? I believe Libby's. It was mentioned in the in I think it's a Frank's motion that it was there. Mrs. Steve's is the eyes and intuition. Oh my goodness, you ladies, Mrs. Steve all the time. The eyes, which makes me feel good about my eyes. Mark, a good point. You hike out at Fort Ord, former Army base, and there's spent casings and live rounds dating to 1941. They lay where they fall. And of all those casings and spent and unspent rounds, they got there some way, and a lot of them will carry certain characteristics from the firearm they were fired through, even to this day. Although they probably have some other markings where they've been stepped on and everything else. Yeah, I've only, Deanne Mays talks about a cat, but only seen pictures of the dogs. Status quo. Um, says, hi, Steve. Good to see you again. All I know is we listen 20% more on our lives as men are 30% better off. I'm not going to stand by that. Don't want to get in trouble. Someone mentioned that they had a member in their family that was that had dark secrets and they just didn't know it and wasn't talked about in the families. No, I have no theories about that. Any building that was destroyed, torn down, or burned, I have no idea. Trying to get as many questions as I can. I appreciate everybody being here. I'm getting called up slowly but surely. But hopefully I won't try and get through here pretty quick because there's other creators out there that have some great shows. If law enforcement doesn't have video from other sources of Richard Allen around town at 1:30, but do at 3:30, that would be very telling about what time he actually left the bridge. And that the defense will absolutely um, be seeking those and witnesses. Hello, Randy. Good to see you. Yes, I don't know who's talking, Gail. I have no idea. Ah, Curtis West, $10 super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate it, Curtis. Oh, I did the blue light for Curtis, and I don't know if my head was in the way or not. From what I saw, and if it is a cut, like I said, what generation of image did I see and how accurate it is, I have no idea. As far as some redactions and things, but it appeared um, um, brighter. It's not like old dark cuts are that's been exposed to air for a long period of time, dried over or anything. It appeared to be, in my opinion, rather fresh. Hello, Di. Good to see you. Someone said there had been previous trail clearing done through there, and the killer could have just grabbed a previously cut limb. Fresh cut. It would have had to be a fresh cut, and from the trails, looking at the limb, the best I recall, that's not a limb that I would have walked with. From my memory, it's not something that I think I will have used as a walking stick. But not saying it's impossible. No, Todd, I will never be able to make it make sense. For the fact that trying to think like a psychopath thinks and trying to, or any type of individual of this type of that could commit such a crime, organized or disorganized, is impossible. There's no way that we'll ever make sense of it. He'll have to stand up there, whoever the responsible party is, and explain it. And yes, there's only small points and during interactions of the witnesses and Richard Allen saying when he met them, the witnesses on the trail, the girls, um, and there's a lot more time that he was alone than those interactions took because I've walked those trails numerous times, met people on the trails, and you may see them 100 yards, 200 yards down the trail, but the identifiable point of where you would be able to see what they have in their hands is only going to be for a minute or so, and then you're past them. And uh, once you go past and your body hides, they wouldn't have any idea of what his actions with his phone would have been. DP says, Steve, do you still have faith this is going to trial? Um, man, that's a good question now. Um, if the bullet stays in, um, uh, and I don't think so. If the bullet stays in, it may not. But that'd be the biggest thing. If they can get the bullet out of there, yeah, it's going to go to trial. Junior does. Just um, Philip Bray, Steve, your professional opinion. Do you think he unorganized for this being his first? Yes. If this is his first, he was extremely organized, well prepped, planned, um, and if he is the offender, he has other types of crimes. It may not always be this, but we do have other unsolved, missing um, cold case crimes in the areas, in near areas where he had lived. He could be responsible for others. Now, that's a coin flip right now, but if this is his first, um, he was very, very lucky. But there's also indications that things happen and he didn't have control also. The moments of losing control, that if it's just like when you go to work and you have all your tools. And if you have all your tools you brought, and you can still have chaos, that nothing goes right. Things break down and it just becomes chaos, even in the most organized manner that you approach certain things. Could that have occurred? Yes. And we mostly see those times that when we're early in our careers, regardless of what type of job that you have, and you've learned that this is how that you go in to do your job and you have everything you need to fix that machine or perform that job. But then things break down, shut down, and you're not prepared. But now as you work and it becomes repetitive and you've had to fix it or reset computers or repair an item, it gets easier. And it's the same with these criminals. They evolve, they learn, and just like we do. Eddie, good to see you. That's very kind of you to say. Dreamscape. Uh, I think Baldwin and Barofsky have made a circus of this pending trial. And it has, and they're doing exactly what they should be doing. Mommy Wolverine, good to see you. Let's see, Philip Bray, good to see you. Yes, and this is something else that kind of indicates that this individual's been in some type of encounter before. You know, we have an individual that's absolutely in control. He's not panicked from that first interaction of whatever ruse he used or presenting that firearm, and able to maintain control up to a point. But then he did lose control. But it is a really good point that no excitement, no nervousness, notable for the calmness. And he seems withdrawn except for his wife. I'm the same way. This is Steve, I tell you, I'm very withdrawn. I'm very shy. Oh, me. Hot. Oh, Bama Sin, good to see you. Is it possible they went back to the crime scene the day after the bodies were found and found the bullet, or was there really a day or two where the scene was left down alone? Last night they brought up that the tape was still up, but even if the tape's up, doesn't mean that, and that's something I was unfamiliar with, that when we left crime scenes, we took the tape down. There was generally, if tape was up, there was some type of security detail there, but I don't know about how it's handled there. I agree with Olivia. It's psychotic. I don't know if that's true or not. I've never heard of that, that he spoke to anyone in town. Mama 3, hello. Getting there, guys. Yeah, this is maybe what you're talking about when you say he talked to the law enforcement and been released. Thank you, Todd. And if you're only a witness, absolutely. Oh, okay. I got to get Mrs. Steve's messaging me again. Lake Michigan. Mr. Steve, you're one of the good ones. Thank you. That's very, let's see. Let me move over here. Get the blue light. Thank you. Appreciate that. Amasin has been a member for 10 months. Appreciate that. And Bama send $10. Thank you, Steve, for all you do to help others. Absolutely. And appreciate the support, because it allows us to go out and do things that we could not do otherwise. Actually, in the next week or two, I'm going to be on the road, going out to help a family on our cold case and doing some other things. And I couldn't do that without our support of people watching this video, sharing it, subscribing, the donations, both online and to the foundation, True Crime Web Foundation, and I appreciate it. Lynn, is it a step in the procedure to use a metal detector at crime scene? I've used them whenever there's need to. They're not used on all crime scenes. Does that mean I might have missed evidence? Possible. But when there was certain shootings or things and we're looking for either casings or even bullets themselves, that we would bring metal detectors in. Not that my agency owned a metal detector, never budgeted one, but there's generally, you can find someone that has it, has the expertise to use it, or you can call in the state guys and they'll come in and help you. Ever heard of a perpetrator burying a bullet at the scene in your experience? No. And why would they want to do that? And that's the thing, was it purposely buried, or is it some act that was there some type of encounter and the bullet or the unspent round was ejected and it was stepped on or recovered? Did it occur due to the movement of the victims? Absolutely could. We just don't know. But now you do hear every now and then of people leaving, making a signature. And could that have been a signature? Possible. And if it was truly buried, and it's not one that was stepped on, I would think that would be an oddity. That if it was actually a buried bullet, intentionally buried, then yes, there's a reason for that. That's a good point, Josh. Let's see here. DMA, the deleted or taped over evidence, wouldn't there be other agencies that had the recordings of everyone that was interviewed whenever they deleted? You know, have I had things that got deleted in a case file? Yes. And it it caused hard times on the witness stand to explain that, yes, I completed an interview. It was recorded. I turned it over to be transcribed and never saw it again. And these are the notes I made during and the questions I had written down to be asked. These are my notes of the answers that we're giving. And this is my report of what the accused said. And it's still a hard time on the stand. Do they have that? I don't know. In the list case, recent advancements in nuclear and mitochondrial has positively confirmed Rex's involvement. Maybe this is being applied to the DNA found at this scene. I don't know if it has or not. We don't know if there is DNA at the scene. Now that will absolutely, there won't be a need for a trial unless they can suppress it. And I believe Curtis is correct here that they didn't disqualify and remove her. And I think they said they're not going to address it again. And this is another good point that the bullet could have been there and seen and or unseen and been covered by a leaf. And through the processing of the scene, an investigator could have stepped on it and pressed it into the ground. That's a good point. Hope that's not the case, but it's a good point. Senior Johnson's going to Kentucky. Be careful. Yeah, I don't know if it was GPS or just the old, what is it? Analogical. I can't say that word right now for whatever reason. The technologies back then may not have been the same technologies that they have now. I believe the FBI question on the video mentioned it was 40 something seconds long. Doesn't mean that's, and they're only talking about one. I mean, there could be others. I mean, I don't know, but the one that they were addressing was 40 something seconds. Lake Michigan, Mr. Steve, you're one of the good ones. I may have got that earlier, but in case, as I go back, Mrs. Steve told me to go to the stars, and so I may get you twice, and I appreciate that support. It means a lot to us. Yes, let's see, I'm getting there. Only 10 minutes or so behind now. This is, yes, the dressing and behavior of anyone that commits these homicides. It says of an unaliver called undoing. It's where the offender dresses the victim again in a bid to undo what they have done. They are ashamed of their act. And that might be true of one, but we're talking about two. And we have one that is not dressed, and we have one that has been redressed. And so I don't think that whoever committed this crime is ashamed and in any shape, form, or fashion. That's just my personal opinion. Todd says, do you think they were impersonating law enforcement? Very possible. I never heard of a temp fence unless they consider the crime scene tape. DP says that they heard that after the bullet was found, they put 8 trail cams near the crime scene. Very possible. There's a lot of strategy that law enforcement uses. True Crime Web test idea. There was some discussion about the bullet being cycled through the gun multiple times. Can you use your microscope to look at 2 marks after 1, 2, 3 cycles? I'll do that. That's a good idea and a good test. Multiple cycles to see. what happens after multiples. I have actually, even one of the ones I tested the other day that I threw it on the ground, I didn't even know it was one that had been cycled through one of my firearms. But as I was photographing it with the microscope the other day, I saw those markings on it. Robin B., good to see you. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. How close were the girls? Within 6 to 10 feet. Depends on what parts. Black Widow, and this is what we all want to do. We want to have those answers. I want to understand criminal minds, but I don't think I ever will. It makes sense to them only. You're absolutely. I did a show on that, and I've talked or spoken with a family member on that case before. All right. At True Crime Web, also brass, steel, and aluminum case ammo differences. Give you an excuse to buy some new ammo. Actually, I've already got all of those. I've got the nickel brass, steel, and aluminum case being tested now. I have, these are the ones that I recovered. There's 4 packages of the 4 shell casing that unspent rounds I recovered on day 1. And the others are being processed, and I'm going to see if I can process them for fingerprints. Todd, did you see runes in the crime scene, or were they merely random sticks and branches? And I did not see the images of the picture of the elf trees, and I did some testing on that. As far as the definition of random, it does not appear that they were tossed. It appears that they were arranged, in my opinion. And there's a lot of people that's looked at them and said that they just thrown there. My opinion, I don't believe so. But all of us have opinions. And so we'll just have to see if whoever eventually is the person that is responsible speaks up, we'll understand it then and only then, because they're the ones that committed acts and took those extra measures of putting those sticks there. And so we'll understand that. But I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank everybody for your support. If you like the video, give it that thumbs up, share it, tell your friends, spread it, because as our footprint becomes larger, we'll be able to go out there and help these cold case families. And there's a lot of work to do, and I'm so far behind, but I enjoy doing it. And it's something that is so unique with this community, and the backing and the support I get. I absolutely appreciate everything that y'all do for us. But y'all stay safe out there. And let me get to something I want to close this on. And I'll see y'all soon, guys. Bye-bye.